Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganata Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganata Prapta Sakalyana Gunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasura Sena Romancha Kampasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramarjanado Dana Nityanana Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavad Prasado Satanna Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavad Prasado Satanna Triptan Kridaiva Triptim Vajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Bhavayarapara Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Para Pratikshana Danalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne kunja yono rati keli sidhai jajali bher jokir apekshaniya ne kunja yono Rati Keli Siddhai Jajali Virjukti Pechaniya Tatrati Daksha Atibalavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Sakshadharitena Shamasta Shastri Uktastathabha Vyataiva Sadvi Sakshadharitena Shamasta Shastri Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Gayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Gayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Patata Deshatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Patata Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Bol Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hariyaraya Namah Krishna Jadavaya Namah Jadavaya Madhavaya Kesavaya Namah Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radha Shri Radha Nila Madhava Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Jagannath Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Sitaram, Sitaram, Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo, Haribo. Haribo Nitai Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari Haribo Jai Vishpara Paramsa Prabhajagacha Desutara Shishma. His Divine Grace ISKCON Pratishtha Bhiviti Samstapakachara Vaishnava Sramani Patita Pavana Vaishnava Sramani Srila Prabhupada Abu Acharavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhara Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Se Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Prima Nama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prima Purushottama Shri Satchidananda Shriman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mavrana Avatari Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaya Ki Jai Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihat Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopna Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Gobodan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathurudam Ki Jai Their Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Maya Purnavadvip Eka Chakradam Ki Jai Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karna Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mathura Dharani Ki Jai Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Netai Gaurari Pramanande Haribo. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. It was in the right place.
This one.
Namaste Narasimhaya Praladala Dadaine Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha Shilatankanakalaye To Nasimha To Nasimha Yato Yato Yami Tato Nasimha Bahe Nasimha Hruye Nasimha Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapatye Tavakara Kamalavare Naka Adbhuta Shringar Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanugana Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Tavakara Kamalavare Naka Adbhuta Shringar Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanugana
Keshavadita Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev
Jaya Narasimhadev
Jai Guru Maharaj Jaya Guru Maharaj Jaya Guru Maharaj
Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Prahlad Bhakta Prahlad Srila Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pada Samapiknashana Karni Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jai Bhakta Shristha Prahlad Maharaj Ki Nitai Gaurari Premanande Hari Hari Bol Shri Vrindai Tulasidevi Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasidevi Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasidevi Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki.
Namo Nama Tulasi Krishna Preyasi. Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi. Namo Namaha.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi. Namo
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi. Namo Namo.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eya Vilasi.
Jitomaya Sharanaloy Tara Vancha Purnahoy.
Jitomaya Sharanaloy Tara Vancha Purnahoy.
Kripa Koi Korotare Vrindavanavasi.
Tumi kripa kori karatare Vrindavanavasi.
Moraya Vilas Vilas Kunjariyava.
Moraya Vilasa Vilasa Kunjariyava.
Nayane Heri Basada Jugala Ruparasi.
Aminayane Nivasada Jugala Ruparasi.
Eini Vedana Jaro Sakir Anugata Koro.
Ene Vedana Dara Sakirana Vatakara.
Sevali Karadiye Koro Nijadasi.
Sevayade Karadiye Karani Jadasi.
Zina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namoraho.
Dina Krishna Dase Kai Eye Namora.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi.
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi.
Lasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama.
Lasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama.
Lasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama.
Yani Kani Chapapani.
Dani Krani Sapapani Brahma Hatari Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradati Naparipani. Dani Kani Sapapani Brahma Hatari Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradati Naparipani. Dani Kani Sapapani Brahma Hatari Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradati Naparipani.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani.
Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jai Shri Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi ki. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Ke Savasatya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devyai Priyai Ke Savasatya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devyai Priyai Ke Savasatya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to attend the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in the grove of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavita Emperors of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me a home and service. It's very fallen and Lord serve Krishna, please. May I always sing love Shri Radha and Govinda Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Chaito Atmana Mahajanam Bhava Mahadavani Nivapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Ananda Mudi Vardhanam Pariparam Punamrita Swadanam Sarva Prasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vabha Jasarva Shaktis Tatrarpitani Amita Shmarane Nakala Itadrisitava Kripaya Bhagavan Namapi Durdhaivam Idrishamiyajari Manvaraga Vinalati Sunichena Tarorati Saishnana Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sudari Sadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadishakamayi Mama Janmani Janmanishari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahituki Tvai Oinandatanu Jakinkaram Paritamam Visame Bhavam Budau Kripaya Tapapada Pankaja Stita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Kalorashru Dharaya Vadanam Gadagarudhaya Gira Pulakairinchitam Papukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakyusa Pravrusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me Aslishava Padaratam Pinastumam Adarshanar Marmahatam Karotuva Jata Tathava Vidadatulam Pato Marpranatastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire conditioned life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness to enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord on a stony street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth to birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the yellow of the sweet. Oh, much. When my eyes will decorate with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name, or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs in my body stand on the end the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I don't know one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so, even if his handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namo Krishna. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme. The devotees will dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting of holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be retained while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Pramanandi. Now let us recite Mangala Chara, Guru Pranam. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Stapitam Dina Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayan Tanati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Vaishnavam cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Savana Raghunathavintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunavadi Pachattari Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Shiva Shavana Videvi Deitaya Kripavai Krishna Sambandha Vigana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhu Jojala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaurakanana Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Vrudha Posiddhanta Dantarine Namo Guru Kishoraya Satchaveragya Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayate Gora Vibhava Bhumetsvam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarva Bhuma Sri Jagannatayate Namaha Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratishe Namaha Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataro Bhaktakyam Namame Bhakti Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanto Namostute Jayatam Suratopango Mama Mandamatirgati Masavasa Padam Bojo Radha Madaramohanam Divya Vindaranya Kalpadumadha Shmara Nagara Shingasanasto Shmaradha Shila Govinda Devo Pristalivi Shivamano Shmarami Shmara Sarasaram Hivam Shvata Tatastita Karshan Venu Swanar Gopir Gopinata Shristuna Tata Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prusabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranam Mantra Ki Jai Shri Brahma Sangeeta Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakada Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshya Vite Shishurabhi Avipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dayala Takyam Param Bata Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandat Pakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasad Vanamalya Vansi Ranangadam Pranayakeri Kala Vilasam Samam Tribhanga Lalitam Diyata Prakasham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Anganiya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalayanti Chirajaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujjala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navajovanam Cha Vedeshu Dullabham Adullabham Adma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Pantastu Koti Sarvasara Prangamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Muni Pungavana Sopyasi Yat Prapadasimnya Vichincha Tate Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Swabhya Suraja Jajitum Jagananta Kutim Yakshakti Rasti Jagananda Chaya Jarantam Adantaram Staparam Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Tat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manujastataiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusha Shukte Yameva Nigama Situte Stuvanti Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavis Taviya Eva Nija Rupa Taya Kalavi Goloka Eva Navasakilat Mabuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Shanta Sadeva Videshu Vilokayanti Jamsama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindamadi Purusham Ramadi Murti Shukalani Yamena Tishtam Nana Vatarama Karod Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Sambhavavat Paramam Pumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasha Prabha Prabhajatu Jagananta Kuti Kotya Swashesha Vasudari Vibhuti Vinam Tat Brahmanis Kalamanantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Maya Yasa Jagananda Satani Sute Tregunya Tat Vishaya Veda Vitaya Mana Sattva Valambi Parasattvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Ananda Chinmaya Rasamataya Manasu Yalprani Nam Pratipalam Smanupan Upetya Lila Yitena Bhuvanani Jaja Jajastram Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Satasya Devi Mahesha Haradama Suteshu Teshu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vihitaschayena Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Sthiti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka Chayena Yasa Bhuvanani Vibhakti Durga Ichha Nurupamabhyasa Chatastatesa Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Kiram Yadadadi Vikara Vishesha Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pratikhastu Heto Yasambhutam Apitata Samupeti Karyat Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Diparshi Eva Isatantara Mamupetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samana Dharma Yastadri Eva Icha Vishnutaya Vibhati Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yakanana Navajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagananta Saruma Kupa Adara Shakti Mavalambya Param Swamurtim Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasvekanishwa Sitaka Lata Valambya Jivantilo Vilaja Jagananda Natha Vishnu Mahanta Iyasasha Kala Vishesho Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Bashman Yatasma Sakaleshu Nijeshu Teja Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Yadavidvatatra Brahmaya Esha Garananta Vidana Karta Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yadhara Palava Yugmam Vinidaya Kumbha Vendre Pranama Samayeya Ganati Raja Vignam Vihantu Malayasya Jagatayasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Agni Mayi Gagananambu Maruti Saja Kalaspatan Manisita Jagatrayani Yasmat Bhavanti Vilapanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yaksha Chudesha Savita Sakala Grahanam Rajas Tamasta Suramurti Mashesha Teja Yajya Gyaya Brahmati Samvrita Kala Chakro Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Dharmo tapa panichaya rustayas tapamsi Brahma dikita patagada yejas chajiva Yadda tamatra vibhava prakata prabhava Govindamadi purisham tamaham bhajami Yatrindra gopa matavindra ahusa karma Bandha nurupa palabhajana attanoti Karmani nirdahanti kintu cha bhakti bhajan Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Yam kruda kama sahaja pratayadi viti Vatsalyamo agura gaura viseva bhave Sanchita tasya sadisim tamama purete Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Shriya kanta kanta parama purusha kalpataravo Druma bhumi chintamani ganamayi toyam amritam Kataganam atyam kamamam abhivam sipriya saki Chiranandam jyotiparam abhi dadadvajayam abhi Sayatra churabibi swaswati swabibi cha sumahan Nimirshadakyo vavrajati jayitrapi samaya Vajesvi tadvipam tamaham iya guruka itinja Vidanta te shanta kiriti virala charakati payi Ishvara parama Krishna sakchit ananda vigraha nadiradi govinda Savakarana karanam Om shanti 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 Shri Guru Shashtakam prayers in English. The spiritual master is always receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears fall from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance to lotus feet of such a spiritual master. This spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean the temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna all kinds of delicious food. Analyze that which is licked, chewed, drank, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugate pastimes of Radhika and Madhav, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish this at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis, who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as Master of the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all Vedic scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Shri Guru Vastakam praise ki jai. Jai Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram. So, I think Maharaj should be late or something. There's no replacement for now. So, either can read Shastra or chant Hare Krishna. Jai. Jaya Guru Shri Gauranga Haribo. I don't think much coming. What we can do, we can just at least to worship our time. We can read some verse just to read what Maharaj read yesterday. We can repeat that again so that we can complete a. Because we cannot read Bhagavatam out. I think Maharaj he worked very hard until morning, I think. So he might not be able to come. So we can just offer prayer to Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So let's repeat some verse from yesterday because we don't want to read a new verse until Maharaj himself does that. So let's repeat. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, verse 27. It's not there. Okay. Maybe we're trying to repeat. Parito Vasape Vasam Charayan Vyaharadibhu Yamuno Pavane Kujat Dvija Sankulitan Vipe Parito Vasape Vatsam Charayan Vyaharadibhu Yamuno Pavane Kujat Dvija Sankulita Gripe Parito Vatsapai Vatsams Charayan Vyaharadibhu Yamuno Pavane Kujat Dvija Sankuritan Gripe. Anybody want to sing?
Parito Vatsape Vatsam
Parito Vatsape Vatsams
Charayan Vyarahadibu
Chayayan Vyaharadibhu
Yamuno Pavane Kujat
Dvija Sankulitan Gripe. Anybody else?
Parito Vatsapai Vatsam
Parito Vasape Vatsams
Charayan
Charayan
Vyaharadibhu
Vyaharadibhu
Yamuno Pavane Kujat
Yamuno Pavane Kujat
Dvija Sankulitan Gripe.
Dvija Sankulitan Gripe. Anybody else? Parito Vasape Vatsams Charayan Vyaharadibhu Yamuno Pavane Kujat Dvija Sankulitan Gripe. Paritaha, surrounded by Vatsape, covered boys. Vatsan, calves. Charayan, heading, tending. Vyaharat, enjoyed by traveling. Vibhuhu, the Almighty. Jamuna, the Jamuna River. Upavane, gardens on the shore. Kuyat, vibrated by the voice. Vija, the twice-born birds. Sankulita, densely situated. Angripe, in the trees. I will just repeat what you read yesterday,
Okay. Thank you.
because we didn't know where you're coming.
Yeah. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Puchari Nivesesa Sunyavani Paskati Starni Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 2 Text number 28 Komarim Darsayam Chestam Prekshaniyam Rajokasam Rudan Iva Hasan Mugda Bala Simha Volokana Komarim, just suitable to childhood. Darsayan, while showing. Chestam, activities. Prekshaniyam, worthy to be seen. Raja Ukasam, by the inhabitants of the land of Vrindavana. Rudan, crying. Iva, just like. Hasan, laughing. Mugda, struck with wonder. Baala Simha, lion cub. Avalokana, looking like that. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the Lord displayed His activities just suitable for childhood, He was visible only to the residents of Vrindavana. Sometimes He would cry and sometimes laugh, just like a child, and while so doing, He would appear like a lion cub. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. If anyone wants to enjoy the childhood pastimes of the Lord, then he has to follow in the footsteps of the residents of Vraja, like Nanda, Upananda, and other parental inhabitants. A child may insist on having something and cry like anything to get it, disturbing the whole neighborhood, and then immediately after achieving the desired thing, he laughs. Such crying and laughing is enjoyable to the parents and elderly members of the family. So the Lord would simultaneously cry and laugh in this way and merge His devotee parents in the humor of transcendental pleasure. These incidents are enjoyable only by the residents of Vraja, like Nanda Maharaja, and not by the impersonalist worshippers of Brahman or Paramatma. Sometimes, when attacked in the forest by demons, Krishna would appear struck with wonder, but He looked on them like the cub of a lion and killed them. His childhood companions would also be struck with wonder, and when they came back home, they would narrate the story to their parents, and everyone would appreciate the qualities of their Krishna. Child Krishna did not belong only to his parents, Nanda and Yasoda. He was the son of all the elderly inhabitants of Vrindavana and the friend of all contemporary boys and girls. Everyone loved Krishna. He was the life and soul of everyone, including the animals, the cows, and the calves. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When the Lord displayed His activities just suitable for childhood, He was visible only to the residents of Vrindavana. Sometimes He would cry and sometimes laugh, just like a child, and while so doing, He would appear like a lion cub. Go to Premanandi, Haribol. So this is confidential knowledge. It's reserved for devotees only, because the materialists, when they hear such things, they can't believe that it's factual. And that is their misfortune. And many people are realizing now that they were duped by the British, who took over the educational system in India in 1825. And the British realized that they could not keep control of India unless they changed the culture of the residents of Bharat. And therefore, they forcibly took over the educational system, and they began to chip away at the belief of people in the residents of Bharat, in their belief that the Vedic scriptures were bona fide. And they convinced them that, and to a large extent, that the Vedas were simply mythological stories, not real. And that their own European science, reason, and logic was the way to truth and modern progressiveness. And that believing in the Vedic tradition was archaic and also superstitious, and would not lead to success, material success. And they were able to educate 4 to 5 generations of young Indians. I was speaking to one lady 2 days ago. She's a very nice lady. She's a Hindu. And when I began to speak on this subject to her a little bit, she said, "You know, you're right. When my mother put me in a Catholic school, my mother and father put me in a Catholic school. Most Indians go to Christian schools in India. Is that right, Prabhu? Yeah. Is that right? You don't know? You didn't grow up in India? Did you go to what kind of school did you go to?
It's a normal school.
A Hindu school?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you? Yeah, most young kids in many parts of India go to Christian schools, and they're taught in a very subtle way. They have to be careful because the government sometimes will get on their case. They have to be taught. They have to do it in a subtle way to teach the kids that the real truth is the Bible and the Vedas are mythological. Did you get that feeling when you were in school? Huh?
There was never a religious talk, but it was a Christian mission.
There was never any religious talk? No? Okay. You didn't have to do any prayers at all?
One of the schools, yes, we have to read Bible, all of it,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
but one school was not. But both were Christian mission.
Okay, well, it depends, they're under the scrutiny of the government, but nowadays, Hindus who converted to Christianity keep their Hindu name, and they become governors of states, and they subtly destroy kids' faith in the Vedic literature. And we see that in a very massive way going on now. And it was the strategy that started in 1825 to destroy the Vedic culture and prove the superiority of Christianity. What happened was that the Christians themselves became atheistic, many of them, and they just switched over from becoming Christian to becoming educated in Western science, and to believe that the Western science is the truth. In any case, we see that this knowledge about Krishna's intimate pastimes in Vraj or Vrindavan is something that only devotees can understand. And how do you become a devotee? It's by associating with others who are devotees, genuine devotees, and who strictly follow the regulative principles. Then you gradually develop a taste to hear about Krishna's transcendental pastimes in Vrindavan. So this is a very wonderful purport. It shows that unless one is actually convinced that the soul is eternal, that there is a spiritual world that's eternal, that God is a person, but he is a unique, most unique person, and then one studies the science of Krishna, the unique qualities of Krishna that no one else can emulate, even though he appears as a ordinary boy in Vrindavan. Of course, Vrindavan is not an ordinary place, but one gradually learns that whenever Krishna comes into the material world, he comes with his Yogamaya potency. He's not under the influence of Mahamaya or illusion. So all these things are hard to understand, even for devotees, but by very slowly going through verse by verse the Srimad Bhagavatam and hearing Bhagavad Gita, one can gradually become convinced of this. After many, many lifetimes of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending in different species of life, if one is fortunate, they may come to the human form of life, and if one is even more fortunate, they may meet genuine devotees like Prabhupada and gradually learn the Vedic knowledge with faith. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita introduction, Prabhupada says, even if you don't believe in God, but you want to read the Bhagavad Gita, you have to at least theoretically accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, you won't understand anything when you hear Bhagavad Gita. So that is a very interesting point. Let me see where he says that. It's in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. It says, one second. Yeah, so on page 7 in my book, my Bhagavad Gita, it says, so according to the statements of Bhagavad Gita, or the statements of Arjuna, the person who's trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita, we should at least theoretically accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and with that submissive spirit, we can understand Bhagavad Gita. Unless one reads Bhagavad Gita in a submissive spirit, it is very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita because it is a great mystery. See, there it is. Even if you don't believe in God, but if you're going to try and understand Bhagavad Gita, you have to at least theoretically accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And with that submissive spirit, we can understand the Bhagavad Gita. Unless one reads the Bhagavad Gita in a submissive spirit, it is very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita because it is a great mystery. So we can see, let's say someone is a Christian or a Muslim, and by some accident they might sit in a class and hear something about Krishna. They're convinced that it's not true. It's all made up mythological stories, and they dismiss it as if it's rubbish. It's nonsense. It's fairy tales. It's Disneyland stuff. So it is very difficult for people to understand Krishna unless they assume amanitvam. Amanitvam means is the first point of knowledge. It's humility. Knowledge without humility, without humility is useless, and we see that there are many knowledgeable people in this world today, and they can expand their discourses for hours and hours talking about this mundane subject and that mundane subject, and you think they're a walking encyclopedia Britannica, but actually they're nonsense, and everything they're saying is just speculative. So You might say, well, no, well, they know a lot about, differential equations, and they know a lot about this and that. Yeah, all nonsense things that cannot help you at the moment of death to go back to Godhead. You can think of differential equations at the moment of death. You're not going to go back to Godhead. You're going to remain in the cycle of birth and death. So this is what has fooled people in India as well as around the world, that they don't know what real knowledge is. They accept things that are not true as knowledge. They accept only materialistic endeavors as knowledge. And that is a great, what you call a tragedy, because as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, he tells Arjuna that I'm going to explain to you now everything that's phenomenal and numinous. Now that word numinous has a big meaning to it. And this is the 7th chapter, verse number 2. Let's see what that says. Yeah, jnanam teham cha vijnanam idam vaksyami ase sataha yajyatva nehabhyuho na nyaj gatavyam avasishyate. So, this jnanam teham savijnanam. Vijnanam is spiritual science, not material science. It is spiritual science. And it says, Krishna says to Arjuna, I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Now, the word numinous in English is Prabhupada chose that word to explain savijnanam. Savijnanam actually means the science of Krishna. And but he used the word numinous. Now, what does numinous mean in English? He doesn't even explain the definition. He says, Vijnanam, numinous knowledge. So numinous knowledge means things that are true, but you cannot see them. So there are many things that are true that you cannot see. Like right now, in this room, there are electromagnetic waves carrying images, carrying voice, and discourses and things like that. Do you see them? No. Do you believe that they're not here? If it was like 100 years ago, you would say, you're crazy. There's no sound. I don't hear anything, and I don't see any pictures. And you would think that the person's crazy. But today you would not say it's crazy. You would say, yes, I believe that there are electromagnetic waves carrying voice, carrying pictures, carrying, people and movies and this thing, that thing. So, that is numinous. It's things that you don't see, but actually they exist. You see. And the Sanskrit word for that is savijnanam, which also means real scientific knowledge. Real science, not junk science, real science. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says, complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world. That's it. The phenomenal world means everything you can see and hear and touch. Right? The spirit behind it and the source of both of them. So there's 3 points to understand reality. Number 1 point, the phenomenal world. Number 2 point, the numinous world. Number 3 point, the person who's the origin of both. That is called real knowledge, or real self-realization with a small s. Self-realization with a capital S means understanding Krishna, who's the Supreme Self. And self-realization with a small s means understanding who you are in relationship to Krishna. You cannot understand who you are in a vacuum. If you were born in a dark dungeon, you would not be able to understand who you are. How do we know that? Because when Brahma appeared on the whorl of the lotus flower, coming from the stem growing out of the belly button of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he didn't know who he was. He didn't know what his purpose in life was. The material world had not been created yet. And all he saw, when he went all the way down the stem of this lotus flower, trying to figure out what's going on. And all he saw was darkness. So he comes back all the way up to the whorl. Whorl means not the bud, but the flower, the lotus flower. And he patiently waits to try and understand what's going on. And he hears two syllables, ta, pa. And because he already had many previous lifetimes, he understood what it meant. Those are two consonants of the Sanskrit alphabet, ta, pa. And he understood that he should engage in tapasya, or austerity, to begin to understand who he is, what his purpose in life is, what is the truth about his relationship with somebody. He didn't know who it was yet. And so he engaged in a very, very long time in tapasya, or voluntary acceptance of discomfort, in order to understand spiritual life. So you see, he did have previous lives, and he was very pious in previous lives, and therefore he was chosen to be Brahma. Brahma is not one person. Brahma means a titular position, just like President of the United States is a titular position. It's a title. And different people are President of the United States at different times. So there are different Brahmas. And usually the most spiritually advanced person in the material universe who still has a desire to dominate becomes Brahma. And they're given a chance to give up that domination, let's say, mindset, and they can go back to Godhead. And if they don't, then they stay in the material world, because the position of Brahma is always taken by jiva. Not when there is no qualified jiva in the universe, and that happens often, then Krishna himself assumes the position of Brahma, right? Or some other plenary expansion of Krishna assumes the position of Brahma. Okay, so in the purport, Prabhupada says to 7th chapter, 2nd verse, complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This is transcendental knowledge. The Lord wants to explain the above-mentioned system of knowledge because Arjuna is Krishna's confidential devotee and friend. So there's some huge points in this sentence. One, that the knowledge of the phenomenal world, the numinous world, and one's relations, and who is behind both, Krishna, is transcendental knowledge, as opposed to the modern junk knowledge that people are taught. One time there's some gentleman that came here, he was one of the gurus in the Madhva Sampradaya in Udupi. And he has been a brahmachari his whole life. And then those gurus are trained to be gurus and celebrate their whole life. Anyway, they asked me to say a few words. I mean, he came and he was speaking to people who are followers of Madhvacharya in Seattle. So I said a few words and I started talking about junk knowledge. And when I finished, he thanked me, and he was very surprised that I used the word junk knowledge. But he said, actually, what he said is correct. But they know also. They know what is fooling all the Hindus in India. It's this junk knowledge. It's not real knowledge. It's all junk. It's all speculation. It's all purposefully taught to destroy the Vedic culture in India. And they're succeeding. They're succeeding wonderfully. It started in 1825 And in a sense, the British were worse than the Muslims, much worse than the Muslims, because the Muslims they were brutal, and they wanted forcibly to change people, right? The British were subtle, and they did it in a very subtle way, all in the quest of knowledge. But they were actually not teaching knowledge; they were teaching junk to the people, and the Indians fell for it. Okay, so then it says, the Lord wants to explain the above-mentioned system of knowledge. This is the Vedic system of knowledge. You don't need computers. You don't need screens. All you have to do is hear submissively and repeat, and understand that the real purpose of knowledge is to be convinced that you should dedicate your whole life to devotional service to the Lord, and eventually develop love and devotion for the Lord and go back to Godhead where you belong. Okay? That's the whole purpose. If you simply study the Vedas to show off, quoting a lot of verses and this thing and that thing, but you don't actually, you're not addicted to the devotional service, you're just addicted to showing off all your acquired so-called knowledge, you fail. You'll be a failure. You'll not go back to Godhead. The only people that go back to Godhead are the ones who actually attain love and affection for Krishna by engaging full-time in devotional service. So we see an example of that, Srila Prabhupada. Full-time devotional service, right? Of course, he was married, but he was preparing himself. And he raised his kids and got them married, this thing, that thing. But then he took sannyas, and then he was engaged 24 hours a day. He gave up his business, and Krishna helped him. He helped him go bankrupt. And Prabhupada says, that was his mercy. He said, whenever I heard this verse, that Krishna's special mercy to his devotee is to make him go bankrupt and to lose his family, and everyone, when the husband goes bankrupt, everyone gets upset. The wife gets upset, the relatives get upset. They say, what is this nonsense? He's just chanting Hare Krishna. He's not a responsible person. Anyway, Prabhupada went bankrupt, but he realized this was Krishna's mercy. And gradually he just gave everything up, became a sannyasi. Of course, he was already 59 years old at that time. So it was time to give everything up. You're supposed to, husband and wife, if they get married in a normal way, wife is like 13 or 14, and husband is like 20 to 25, already has a way of earning honest money. They get married, they can start having children, and for 25 years, they raise the children and teach them to be Krishna conscious. And once the children are raised and married, then the husband and wife become vanaprastha. That is, they give up the attachment to home and hearth and begin to travel to holy places and engage in, gradual tapasya, chanting, dancing. Prabhupada says dancing is also scientific. Dancing in Krishna consciousness is also scientific. I never really, when I first heard that, I wasn't sure what he was talking about, right? Because you don't associate dancing with science, right? But he says it's very scientific. Why? Because when you are beginning to feel happy in Krishna consciousness, you want to dance. Right? I knew this one crazy lady. She had some mental problems, but whenever you'd see her, she'd be talking to you, and all of a sudden she starts singing and dancing. And you just wait there and watch her. And say, what's going on here? And this lady must be crazy, right? Well, someone who just on the urge starts to dance and sing, either they're a pure devotee or they're crazy. And how do you tell the difference? Well, when they're crazy, they start singing nonsense songs and dancing to it. And when they're devotees, they start chanting bona fide bhajans, and they start dancing. And that's what Lord Chaitanya would do. He would go into an ecstatic state. He would start dancing and singing, the glories of Krishna. So there's a way of knowing who's crazy and who's not crazy. But it takes time to figure it out. Okay, so here it says that in the beginning of the 4th chapter, this explanation of what? This system of knowledge of Krishna consciousness, right? There's a system. It's called pedagogy, P-E-D-A-G-O-G-Y, something like that. It means how to teach, how to present knowledge. So this system, in the beginning of the 4th chapter, this explanation was given by the Lord, and it is again confirmed here. Complete knowledge can be achieved only by the devotee of the Lord in disciplic succession directly from the Lord. Whoa. Let me read that again. Complete knowledge can be achieved only by the devotee of the Lord in disciplic succession directly from the Lord. In other words, you have to be initiated in the bona fide disciplic succession. It's not that, I'm part of the Sampradaya. Oh yeah, what is your lineage? It all started with my grandfather. He gave up chanting Hare Krishna and took up meditation. So that's not a disciplic succession. That's another junk. See, and many times, like the Brahma Kumaris, their original founder of their disciplic succession was some grandpa, right? And he decided to, just meditate and become a celebrate. Oh, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But the rest of their philosophy is junk, complete junk. They don't believe that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They believe that Grandpa was Brahma. There you go. Right? If you don't believe me, you can look up the Brahma Kumaris. So, and then they regularly insult Krishna when they speak, but they do it in a nice way. They smile when they say the insulting words. See, they're very clever people. Of course, sometimes people go, Hari Vilas, when he gives a lecture, he names names. Yeah, why not name the names of nonsense people so that you know who they are, right? Anyway, it continues. It says, therefore, one should be intelligent enough to know the source of all knowledge, who is the cause of all causes and the only object for meditation and all types of yoga practice. Yeah, sometimes I ask people, what do you meditate on? Well, I sort of squeeze my third eye and I see this light, and that light, that is God. This is nonsense. This is complete nonsense, right? Yeah, if I squeeze you like here really hard, you might see some blotches with your eyes closed, you think that's the Brahma Jyoti. That's not the Brahma Jyoti. That's your blood system, right? But people are crazy. One time, this very, very rich guy in Paris, he was driving he was being driven in a limousine, and he stopped to look at our Sankirtan party in Paris, and then he sent his son and to talk to me. He said, "Sir, my father wants to meet you." I said, "Wait a minute, we're on Sankirtan here. We don't have time." No, you have to talk to my father. You have to talk to my father. He's a very important man. See, he's in that limousine over there. So I said, okay. So I go and talk to him, and he invites me to his house. And I said, well, I don't know who you are. He said, no, I know who you are. I want you to come to my house. And I'll send my son with the limousine to pick you up. I said, oh, okay. I thought, well, maybe he's a very rich guy. Maybe he wants to help us. So a couple days later, he sends this limousine. It's a gigantic limousine. And I get in, and he drives me way outside of Paris to this mansion, a gigantic mansion in the big suburbs of Paris. And I go into the house, it wasn't a house, it was a mansion. And they make me sit down in their dining room, which is, the dining room table is big enough for like 80 people, and it's all full of, very expensive things. So I'm just sitting there in this big room and I'm wondering what's going to happen. And this guy walks in. He's the father. He's a very, very rich man. And he starts talking nonsense to me about, yoga and meditation. And he at one point he gets up and he starts walking behind my chair to one side of that gigantic table. And then he walks behind me to another side, and he's talking about, that he's a guru and he knows the truth. And all of a sudden he's behind me speaking, and he's talking about, the light. And all of a sudden he grabs my so-called third eye and squeezes it as hard as he can. And he says, "Do you see the light? Do you see the light? Now you're initiated." And this is a true story now. I'm not making it up. And I realized this guy's crazy. He's really crazy, And I said, yeah, I see the light. He said, "Now you're my disciple." I said, "Okay, I got to go home now, Guru Dev, because I'm feeling really tired. I was chanting all day long." He said, "No, you don't have to chant anymore." I said, "Okay, no, I won't. I'll follow what you say." So I said anything to get out of there, And I never wanted to see him again. He kept calling me up. I said, I wouldn't even talk to him. These are crazy people, very crazy people. And there's plenty of them in the world today, So unless you know what is the truth and what is not the truth, you can be fooled by these crazy people. And many people are. So here we have, he says, "Therefore one should be intelligent enough to know the source of all knowledge," that's Krishna, "who is the cause of all causes," that's Krishna, "and the only object for meditation," that's Krishna, "in all types of yoga practice. When the cause of all causes becomes known, then everything knowable becomes known, and nothing remains unknown. The Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 1.3 say, "Kasmin Bhagavato Vigyate Sarvam Idam Vigyatam Bhavati." And see, notice the word Vigyate and Vigyatam. Again, it's talking about knowledge that is phenomenal and knowledge that is numinous. And in the 13th chapter, 19th verse, this is explained in much further depth. And it says, "Iti chetram tata jnanam yeyam choktam samsata mad bhakta etad vijnana mad bhava yo papadyate." Thus, the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me, meaning Krishna. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. So this is the same thing that's being said in the purport today. Only the devotees can understand this knowledge. It's the same thing that was said in the 7th chapter, verse number 2. And now he's going into deeper understanding of the same point in the 13th chapter, 19th verse. The whole 13th chapter is going into this deeper understanding of what is real knowledge. Knowledge is both phenomenal and numinous. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, the Lord has described in summary the body, knowledge, and the knowable. The knowledge is of three things: the knower, the knowable, and the process of knowing. Combined, these are called vijnana. Vijnana, or savijnana, is even stronger word. It means the science of both phenomenal and numinous things, or the science of knowledge. So this word vijnana means the science of knowledge, not just knowledge. Knowledge could be junk, but savijnana is real scientific knowledge. Perfect knowledge can be understood by the unalloyed devotees of the Lord directly. So unalloyed means you don't have any other preoccupation in life than Krishna consciousness. That's your whole life. All right, you might be married, you might be working, but your real concentration, day and night, is Krishna. So perfect knowledge can be understood by the unalloyed devotees of the Lord directly. Others are unable to understand. The monists, meaning the Mayavadis, say that the ultimate stage of these three items becomes one. But the devotees do not accept this. Knowledge and development of knowledge mean understanding oneself in Krishna consciousness. Self with a small s. We are being led by material consciousness. But as soon as we transfer all consciousness to Krishna's activities and realize that Krishna is everything, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti, Krishna, you are everything for me, then we attain real knowledge. Say, Prabhupada's talking about real knowledge. What we're learning today is junk knowledge. When I said that in front of that sannyasi, later on he said, he's right. What he said is junk knowledge. That's what people are learning in India and America and in Europe, all over the world. See? And then here it says, in other words, knowledge is nothing but the preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly. So, if you read Bhagavad Gita, but you're not convinced to engage in devotional service full time, you have not read the Bhagavad Gita. Even though you read it 100 times, you went through it 100 times, but you're not fully engaged in devotional service, you have not read it. And you have not understood a damn word of it until you realize that the whole message of Bhagavad Gita is to convince you to be engaged full-time in Krishna's service. Now, to summarize, one may understand that verses 6 and 7 of the 13th chapter, beginning from Mahabhutani and continuing through Chaitanya Dhriti, analyze the material elements and certain manifestations of the symptoms of life. So that's the verse. Mahabhutani. One second. Let me just take a look at that. Yeah. Mahabhutani. Number 6. Yeah. Mahabhutani ahankaro. Buddhir avyaktam evacha. Indriyani dasaikam cha panchachandriya gokara. Icha dvesa sukam dukam sangatas chetanadriti etachetram samasena savikaram udaratam. And this verse says, the 5 great elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions. All these are considered, in summary, to be the field of activities and its interactions. In other words, this is a description of the body, which is the field of activity, or the kshetram. And then next, it says, these combine to form the body, or the field of activities. And verses 8 to 12, from Amanitvam through Tattvajnanartha Darshanam, describe the process of knowledge. So this process of knowledge is 13th chapter, 8th verse to the 11th verse, or 12th verse, I'm sorry. And it says, Amanitvam, Adamitvam, Ahimsa Santamarjavam, and Acharya Pasamam Socham Staryam Atma Vinigraha. Indriyatam Vairagyam Ahankara Ityam Evacha Janramityu Jaravyadi Dukadosana Darshanam Asaktirana Biswam Gav Putradara Grihadisu Nityam Cha Samatashittatvam Istan Istupapatisu Mayichananya Yogena Bhakti Avyabhicharine Vivikta Desa Sevitam Aratir Gyana Samsadi Adhyatma Gyana Nityatvam Tattva Gyanartha Darshanam Etaj Gyanam Iti Proktam Agyanam Yad Atonyata. These are the 18 points of real knowledge explained in depth. It has a very long purport. And when it says Etaj Gyanam Iti Proktam Agyanam Yad Atonyata, anything besides these 18 points of knowledge is junk. It's nonsense. It has nothing to do with reality. It's all made up junk. See? So, if you want to know what the process of knowledge is, you have to read 13th chapter, 8th verse to the 12th verse. Those are 5 verses. Okay. So, and then it says, in this purport, that in other words, knowledge is nothing but preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly. In the 15th chapter, this will be very clearly explained. Now, to summarize, one may understand that verses 6 and 7, beginning from Mahabhutani and continuing through Chaitanya Dhriti, analyze the material elements and certain manifestations of the symptoms of life. These combine to form the body or the field of activities, and verses 8 through 12 from Amanitvam through Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam describe the process of knowledge for understanding both types of knower of the field of activities, namely the soul and the supersoul. Then verses 13 through 18, beginning from Anadimat Puram and continuing through Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam, describe the soul and the Supreme Lord or the supersoul. Thus, three items have been described: the field of activity, the body, the process of understanding, and both the soul and the supersoul. It is especially described here that only the unalloyed devotees of the Lord can understand these three items clearly. So for these devotees, Bhagavad Gita is fully useful. It is they who can attain the supreme goal, the nature of the Supreme Lord Krishna. In other words, only devotees and not others can understand Bhagavad Gita and derive the desired result. Very few people understand this. Even amongst devotees, there are only a few people that understand this properly. Why? Because they say, oh, well, I read Bhagavad Gita, in other words, and I passed my Bhakti Shastri. Well, that doesn't mean anything. What do you remember what you read? And what can you explain? Can you convince another person to become Krishna conscious? So some people can't, because they don't just read it once and pass the test to get the Bhakti Shastri title. They have to read and hear every day, because our disease is forgetfulness. It goes in one ear and comes out the other ear. And in between, there's a vacuum. But that's why repetition is absolutely important in spiritual knowledge, because our weakness is forgetfulness. Okay, so we'll stop right there. What time is it now? Wow, okay. Any questions? You see, just one verse can have the whole philosophy in it. Yes.
Thank you, Marge, for the reminder of what is real knowledge. So it's important to read it. One thing about parampara.
You have to speak in the microphone.
So it's just sometimes we get challenged on the parampara.
Closer to the mic.
Yeah.
Just pick it up.
Should I take it out? Sometimes we get challenged on parampara because people say, there's holes, gaps in the line, and then we say, we have a shiksha line, right?
No. Yes and no. There are no gaps. It's just as if they put all the names, it would be a big book. So they just named the main people and the main pure devotees in the disciplic succession who have done huge, significant, let's say, work. They don't name all of them, because Prabhupada said if you named all of them, it would be a gigantic book, like the Encyclopedia Britannica. There are no gaps. There might be times when there's a deterioration of the transference of knowledge from one generation to another. Then Krishna appears to pick it up again, just like he did 5,000 years ago. He came and reignited the purity of the disciplic succession by choosing Arjuna, who was not a sadhu in the strict sense of the word. He was a kshatriya. So why did he choose Arjuna when Vyasadeva was present, Narada Muni was present, all these people were present 5,000 years ago? Why didn't he choose one of them? Because he says, Bhaktusime sakacheti rahasyam hitad uttamam. He chose Arjuna because he is his bhakta and he's his sakha. He is is a pure devotee who is completely dedicated to him, and he is a deep friend, right? And then also he said, idam tu te guyatamam pravikshami anasuyave gyanam vijnanam saitam isyatva mokshasi subhat. He says that he is not envious also. So those three qualities, he's bhakta, sakha, and anasuya, is not envious. So he chose Arjuna to be the reviver of the sampradaya 5,000 years ago. Sometimes that happens. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And so, but the shiksha part, we say we're a shiksha line, right? So, but then how does that differ from, people just saying, yeah, my grandfather is, he's my shiksha guru, that's why, and he got his shiksha from that, so that's how we're in line also.
Well, there is shiksha and there's junk. So if your grandfather was your shiksha guru, but he was teaching you junk, that's not really a shiksha guru, is it? If he teaches you junk. So you have to differentiate. And so how do we differentiate? Is this person a member of one of the four bona fide sampradayas? The Sri Sampradaya, the Kumar Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya, and the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya. Those are the only four bona fide sampradayas. All other sampradayas are usually junk. They don't have any bona fide, because each one of those four sampradayas begins from Krishna, and each one of them accepts Krishna as the supreme absolute truth. So that's the criterion, and you learn these criterions in classes spoken by genuine devotees who also give you the shastric evidence to back it up, right? So if you want to see where this is backed up about the four bona fide sampradayas, you have to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you want to know where it's said exactly, I can let you know. So there's a way of verification. It's called the triangle of verification. The triangle has 3 points. If you can close the 3 points, then you know it's absolutely true. So when Bali Maharaj had a guru, and his what was his name? His guru's name was, I'll think about it in a second. And his guru told him, Sukracharya, yeah. Sukra means semen. It means the guru of semen, right? So, in other words, a family guru. It's not a pure devotee. So Sukracharya taught him that Vishnu is the goal of all sacrifices. Okay. But when Vishnu appeared in his form as Vamanadev, a dwarf, Brahmana, he said, don't give him a damn penny. And Bali Maharaj was confused. With Gurudev, you said that, no, don't give him anything because it's going to take everything away from you, and then how am I going to get my salary at the end of the month? So this was a red flag for Bali Maharaj, because his guru, who taught him that Vishnu is the goal of all sacrifice, now is telling him this guy is Vishnu in this dwarf incarnation. Don't give him a penny. So this was a breach of confidence, and so he said, "Well, Gurudev, I can't accept this instruction." He said, "What? I'm your guru. It's a great blasphemy if you don't accept my instruction." He said, "Well, yeah, but you're saying something that's against Krishna consciousness. If you say he is Krishna himself appearing in this dwarf incarnation, and I should not give him anything, after previously you taught me that I should give everything to Vishnu, therefore I cannot follow your instruction." So then Sukracharya cursed him. So I curse you. But Bali Maharaj accepted his curse as a blessing. He said, if I'm going to lose everything to Vishnu, well, that's the goal of life anyway. So actually, it's a blessing. Your curse is a blessing to me, right? So, because he couldn't close the triangle, there's there's Krishna or Shastra, and there's Acharyas, and there's the present Guru. If they all validate each other, then you close the triangle, 3 points. If you can only close 2 points, you can't close the third one. That means it's not true. Therefore, you cannot accept the instruction of the so-called Guru, because he's violating the instructions of Krishna and the Acharyas. So this is called the triangle of verification. If you learn the triangle of verification, even in mundane things, you will never make a mistake. So how do we know that? Well, for example, someone tells you, Saddam Hussein is a good guy because America supported him against the Iranians. And then later on they say, well, Saddam Hussein is not a good guy because he attacked the Arabs in, what's that country? Kuwait. Now, well, wait a minute. Why did he do that? Before, he was being funded by the CIA and the United States, and they were giving him armaments, just like they're giving armaments to Zelensky and Ukraine right now. And now, and he was helping the United States, and now you say he's the enemy? You say, so you cannot close the triangle like that. They're talking nonsense. One time he's the good guy, now he's the bad guy. And how do we know that? Well, during that period, Colin Powell and George Bush, they were saying, well, he's got weapons of mass destruction. What? After they killed him and they invaded Iraq and they took over the whole country, they couldn't find any weapons of mass destruction. Said they were lying, you see. So it doesn't make sense. He's an ally of the United States. Now he's the enemy, you see. So even in mundane things, you can use the triangle of verification. But actually, its real use is in spiritual things, because you know. I mean, in material things, there can be lying, there can be cheating, and so forth. In spiritual things, there's no lying and cheating. Krishna is the origin of all knowledge. Krishna is the author of all the Vedas in his incarnation as Vyasadeva. And there are bona fide acharyas, and there are 4 bona fide disciplic successions that accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, there's a present guru. If the guru is saying exactly the same thing as the acharyas, who are speaking exactly the same thing as Krishna, then he's bona fide. You close the triangle. You can accept his instructions. If he says something different, then you can't close the triangle of verification. Then you cannot accept that guru's instructions, so-called guru's instructions. Okay? So what is your question about the disciplic succession? You said it's a shiksha lineage. What does that mean, shiksha lineage? Well, the example is Bhaktivinoda Thakura. He had a family guru, but later on he accepted Gorkishore. He accepted Jagannath Babaji as his guru, and Jagannath Babaji confirmed for him the place of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. So here we have an example of family guru and shiksha guru. Right? So it doesn't matter. It can be either way, and it is either way in disciplic succession. Brahma is the shiksha and diksha guru of Narada Muni. Narada Muni is the shiksha and diksha guru of Vyasadeva. Right? But in some cases, like in Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his earlier life, he accepted the family guru, right? And then later on, he accepted Jagannath Babaji as his shiksha guru, who was more significant than his family guru, because his family guru still has some material desires, but his shiksha guru was a pure devotee. So it's not only a Shiksha lineage. Sometimes, like in the case of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one accepts the Shiksha Guru as the most significant Guru in his life. Because when he was younger, he was told by his parents to accept so-and-so as Guru because that's our family Guru. Okay? All right. So now we'll have any other questions? If not, then we'll go forward to Guru Puja, to the real Guru, Srila Prabhupada. You want to see? Yeah, go ahead.
Should I take the paper?
Yeah, go ahead. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandho moi savadana mate
Bando Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara prasade bai e bhava toriya jai
Janara Prasade Bhai He Bhava Koriya Jai
Krishna prapti ho jaha hoite
Krishna Prapti Oya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Goriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Goriya Kya
Arana Koriyo Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charani Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिला जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिला जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
दिव्य ज्ञान दे प्रकाशितो
भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेद गाय जहाँ रचरितो
वेद गाय जहाँ रचरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु लोकेनाथ लोकेर जीवाना हा हा प्रभु कोरो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया
प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पद छाया
एबे जास गौशिक त्रिभुवना
त्रिभुवना
प्रभु पद पतित पवना
पतित पवना
जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद
जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णभ्यस्ताय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात देशतारिणे
जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय Jayom Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Pararajagacha, Statara Satara Shishi Shimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Shikaho, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Dvaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhuti, Srimati Bhakti Vinata Swami, Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Pacharini, Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Desatani. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, and the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, I can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavan Ki Jai. Namaste. Gaura Premanandi, Haribo, 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 Haribo. Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice.